I really think if you put into practice these tips or this advice really that I've given you, I think it will really spike the rate of development and your improvement really as a musician and an instrumentalist. So for me, it's very much important to put that in the public eye, to tell people the reality of that, the late starter experience, what it's really like. So yeah, if you want to see more of that, keep watching. Hallo Leute und willkommen zu einem neuen Video von mir. Ich bin Stella Küstenjabber und heute reden wir über Tipps für Late Starters. Bist du ein Late Starter? No, I'm just kidding. The video it'll be in English. It's fine. I'll speak English for the video. That was just me flexing a little bit. Never mind. Yeah, scratch that. The video will be in English. Don't worry. As a late starter is being around really good people. When I say being around good people, I mean being around people whose skill you admire, and whose work ethic you admire. So that means being around people who are better than you, really, because being around them increases the standard of what's normal to you, And so when you're around that higher standard more often, your standard of playing will also get higher and higher. It'll up your standard of playing and standard of just listening and playing in general. But more to that, I really mean like, you become what you're around the most. Eventually you're gonna pick that up. So the point is that when you're around those people enough, when you're around settings where really high level of music is being practiced, then that becomes your standard, and you don't go below that, because that becomes what good sounds like. Yeah, that is definitely the first tip. The second one would be to practice smart. People always say practice hard, and to a certain extent, I agree with that. I get where that's coming from, but as a late starter, you don't have a lot of time. Okay, that's just the reality of it. You don't have a lot of time. You're already starting at a deficit to a lot of children or maybe other adults or whatever, wherever you are in your journey. But you're not starting in the same place that a lot of other people are starting. So you have to really practice smart. When you practice, be intentional. Don't just go through this passage 1,000 times and not actually think, what is still wrong with this passage? Why is it still out of tune? Why does my arm still feel sore after playing this? You have to really be mechanical and clinical, really, sometimes in the way that you practice, but definitely analyzing, always analyzing, listening attentively to what's happening. Kind of listening here, and also kind of having an ear out to kind of listen from outside also, how it could sound. This is also why it's great to record yourself, right? You're your own worst enemy or your own worst critic. So that's why it's always just good to record yourself, to really hear how it sounds from the outside, because sometimes what it sounds like from the inside or the close proximity where you're playing is not always what it sounds like from the outside. This is why I always love to listen to recordings of myself. Not love to, like let me listen to a recording of myself. No, it's just like it helps me to listen to a recording, especially after I felt like I played really badly, like I did for a few performances. It helped me a lot to just look at the video, at the recording, to just see, okay, this is actually how it sounded to them. Yeah, and that makes me feel a lot better usually. The third tip actually goes along with the first one, and it's to be around a lot of performance based activities and to take part in them. So when I say performance based activities, I mean I was in a youth orchestra, like at least 3 youth orchestras, or orchestras that young people played in. you know, and the standard for one of those orchestras was really high. Um, so to be around those kinds of people, to be in that section, I moved in the section from being the person who played at the back to being the principal. And it just, you get, it's very empowering because you learn your way, and there's nothing wrong with starting at the bottom. And if you're a late starter, you are really starting at the bottom. Um, so there's nothing wrong with that, really. But you have to be around those people. You have to be in those scenarios. You have to play a lot. You have to perform in an orchestra setting as a soloist, in a chamber music setting. Just get used to playing around, you know, playing around with people. That's what I mean. Because that really does add to your performance, kind of like, what's the right word? Like checklist, I guess, to say that, yeah, you've performed enough times to have experience as a performer, which is something that prodigies have, because they start to perform from a very young age. You know, like auntie, I don't know, so and so comes in, and she comes from Korea, and she's here for like, I don't know, 2 days, and they ask little Singming to play, you know, for her or something. And they have that experience from like a very young age, you know, from like 4 years old. And next thing, Singming is playing, you know, at Carnegie Hall at the age of 17, you know. So we're not in the same category. We're not in the same race as Singming or as those kinds of prodigies, but we have to get that experience very intentionally. And you have to put yourself out there and put yourself in those kinds of experiences, no matter how comfortable or uncomfortable it may be. The fourth tip is, do not compare yourself to prodigies. You know, that'll make you depressed a lot of the times. No, it won't make you depressed. But it's just not going to help you, you know? Don't compare yourself to prodigies. You're not like them. Okay? I'm going to say this again, and everyone say it with me. You're not a prodigy. And that's not a bad thing. That doesn't mean you're destined to be a bad player. But that means you didn't have the same start to life that they did. You don't have the same upbringing. You don't have the same circumstances as they did. And that's not necessarily your fault. It's not your parents' fault or anything. Because sometimes I know I thought like, oh, only if my parents exposed me to music earlier, I'd be so far now, you know. It's not their fault. Then they know nothing about classical music, really. The only things that they know is the things that I've told them and the things that I've exposed them to. So that's not really their fault. But now that I'm in the position that I'm in, it's my responsibility to, you know, to improve and to find ways to play the cards that I was dealt the best. You know, to see that, okay, this is the position that I'm in. There's nothing that I can do to change where I've come from, but this is where I am now, and what can I do about it? Which is why I'm, you know, recording stuff like this, sharing these kinds of tips, that now you find yourself in this late starter position. This is what you can do about it. And the last one is, I'm gonna quote slash imitate my old violin teacher. She said, I think I asked her like, why is the violin so hard or something, or oh, when will I get good at this or something that a lot of us late starters ask. And she said, have patience. Yeah, she said, see, it happened again. She, you know, obviously she said, have patience. She was Romanian. She's still alive. But she has, you know, like quite a thickish Romanian accent, and she said, have patience. But the point is, after all that rambling, that you do need to have patience on this journey of becoming a professional musician, a good player, you know? And it requires a lot of sacrifice from your side, a lot of time, a lot of money, a lot of effort. And you have to put that time in, and you know what I mean? Like, it's just, you have to make the best of the resources that you were given, you know, and just have to be patient with the journey. You know, it might take 4 years before you can play the piece that you've always wanted to play, this huge concerto. I don't know, like you know what you really want to play as a late starter, and you're like, that is the hallmark, that is the goal, that is the rite of passage or whatever. Um, I think for me it was like the Dvorak cello concerto. Uh, but in 6 years of playing cello, I only learned it at the end of the 5 years. And now still in the sixth year. Um, and even though I've learned it, it's still very hard to play. Um, and it's one of those pieces that you have to keep coming back to. Just, you know, it's so hard that I still have to, you know, really put some time in to learning it. But that's also, yeah, it's not about me, it's about you. But yeah, have patience. It might not take 5 years for you, it might take 10 years. But I think if you're implementing all these steps, all these tips that I mentioned, it should not be that long. You have to be consistent, and you have to work hard and smart. When I say hard, you just have to really, you have to get in there. You know, you have to get in there and put the work in consistently. And then you'll definitely see this. Actually, not even this, like this. Notice that it's still going up, but it goes up and down. So, yeah, we have to be consistent. Anyway, so that's the end of this video. I didn't want to make it too long because the other one was super long. But that is it from me, guys. Hit the subscribe button. I hope that you guys like this video, and please share this video, and if this helped you, share it with someone else. Subscribe to the channel if you're new and you like the content that I'm putting out. You know, drop a like, you know, all those things that the YouTubers say, and my Instagram will be down there somewhere. See you next time.